So let's just make the segue from an act of integrity and faithfulness to the system to an abuse of the system, which we've been focused on the last 18 hours or so. You've denounced very forcefully the indictment of Donald Trump coming out of the Manhattan DA's office. Seems clearly a motivated prosecution. No one else would be prosecuted. No one with a different name would be prosecuted for this alleged offense. So we'll take that as a given. What do you say, though, to folks on our side who are obviously outraged by this and think the proper response is, in effect, giving up on fairness and neutrality? They don't play by the rules, so the only way it's going to stop is if we have a prosecutor somewhere in office who distorts the law and twists it to go and nail one of their people. Is that the correct approach, and how would you discuss it one way or the other?
Well, first let me just say, I think the unprecedented indictment of a former president of the United States for a campaign finance issue is an outrage. And I think it's clear to the overwhelming majority of the American people that this is nothing short of a political prosecution being affected by a Manhattan DA who literally campaigned on bringing charges against one particular American. And I must tell you that that should be offensive to every American, left, right, and center. Every American deserves equal treatment under the law. And I believe the American people will see this for what it is. But to your point, the answer is not to become like them. The answer is to return to a commitment to the foundations of the rule of law enshrined in the Constitution of the United States. And the antidote to that ultimately is, Vince Lombardi said sometimes there's no substitute for just going out and winning the ball game. Right? And I really do believe that whether it's local prosecutors' races or the highest office in the land, we've got to rally behind men and women that are committed to the principles at the heart of our republic, that are committed to equal justice before the law and to a fair administration of justice. I'm very troubled about that in another way, is that, as I've traveled around the country, I was in Iowa this week, New Hampshire a little bit ago. Very nice states to visit this time of year. Nobody's talking about this stuff. I mean, literally, I was at the machine shed in Des Moines a couple of days ago, and I took questions for an hour. Nobody brought up all the different investigations and the drama that is an obsession of much of the national media. What they were talking about was the failed policies of the Biden administration at home and abroad, the fact that their families are struggling under the worst inflation in 40 years, the fact that we have a crisis at our southern border, war raging in Eastern Europe, China menacing in the Asia Pacific. I mean, there's a great deal of anxiety out there about the failure of President Biden, his administration, and Democrats in Washington, D.C. And I really do believe that the worst part of what happened yesterday is that at a time when we're facing large, intractable challenges at home and abroad, this will likely only serve to further divide our country. At a time when we ought to be finding ways to come together to face these challenges, to get our economy moving again, to tackle a national debt crisis, to rally around our liberties and our values, and to support our national defense. And the other thing is, Rich, I will tell you, having served many years on the International Relations Committee in the House, having traveled around the world as Vice President of the United States, I think the indictment of a former President of the United States on a campaign finance issue sends a terrible message to the wider world about American justice. Because I have to tell you, there are dictators and authoritarians around the world that will point to that to justify their own abuse of their own so-called justice system. So I'm very troubled by it, but I think the American people will see through it. But the key, I think, for conservatives going forward, the key for leaders in our party going forward, is not to be preoccupied on these issues, but to continue to focus on the real challenges facing the American people at home and abroad, and ensure that we elect leadership that will turn this country back to common sense conservative principles in 2024.